looks like we're at about 2 after the hour, so I don't want to delay too much longer. Just a couple of, let's see, housekeeping items before we get kicked off. Again, we're getting started here today in our second session, and we have Jomin from Wealthbox, we've got Eddie from Orion, and we've got Randy Dippell, our advisor expert on the three different platforms that we'll be discussing today. And I'm Alison Susko from AssetMap. And we're excited to have everyone here today in our second session. So we started up last week. For those of you who joined us, welcome back. For those of you who may have missed it, the session was absolutely recorded, and you're more than welcome to go back and watch and get a real nice deep dive into the different systems and platforms that we've been highlighting in this series. So feel free to give us a shout out if you'd like us to send the recording. We're happy to do so. And it will certainly be available to anybody who likes it. Today, again, we're going to be talking with a couple of who I would consider to be experts. And these are our speakers. So again, Jomin from Wealthbox, Eddie from Orion, and Randy Dippell, an advisor who's with AdvicePeriod, and again, myself from AssetMap. And we're super excited to be here today. None of this is nearly as exciting without some interaction from the audience. So we've got a great group on the line today. If you have any questions at all, I will be monitoring the chat box throughout. So I want to make sure that all of your questions that you have, anything you'd like to hear, especially from Randy, who's really an expert in working these systems into his practice, please type them into the questions and answers area, type them into the chat box, and I'm going to monitor throughout. I might even shoot some questions out to the group during the session that is meant to be very interactive. So don't be shy. Let us know what you're thinking, and we'll absolutely get to your question. And we're super excited to get things kicked off. So let's do it. Randy, hello.
Hi. Thanks so much for having me. It's great to be here.
Yeah, thanks for being here. So AssetMap has had a relationship with Randy, I believe, since 2017. Is that right, Randy?
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
Excellent. And he's been a big help to us with a lot of different projects, including one of our beta testers for the Wealthbox AssetMap integration. He's also, of course, a longtime Orion subscriber, and both systems, Orion and Wealthbox. And I would love to hear a little bit more about your practice, Randy. Tell us all about it and what made you look into these wonderful solutions for your practice.
Sure. Thanks, Allison. Yeah, so I started an independent practice in 2012. And kind of out of the box, Orion was kind of my go-to for portfolio management and billing and all the great things that they did. And it's just been amazing to watch Orion grow over this time period of almost 9 years now. Just the things that you can do in Orion versus the things when I first started is just amazing. Everything's appified now. Before that, it was not. So it was a much different software platform, but really enjoyed the ability to watch them grow and integrate other tech partners and just provide an open platform and make it easy for advisors to get data, to manipulate data, to get data to clients however they wanted it in whatever form they wanted it. So Orion has been a great partner for a very long time, and appreciate that.
Thanks, Randy. So like as you considered a lot of the things that you were doing with your business, I mean, what kind of elevated you to move forward with some of the other partners that you were needing? Like, what were some of the circumstances that were kind of coming across your firm that drew you to the AssetMap and Wealthbox experience as well?
Well, to be blunt about it, when I first started out, there wasn't like a real go-to solution as far as I was concerned from a CRM standpoint. And Redtail was around, it was a name that I had heard a few times, and Salesforce was obviously out there, and I just thought that was not a really good solution for a solo advisor. Just too many things to do inside of a system like that. And I was using any number. I think I used 2 or 3 different CRMs before Wealthbox came around, and it was just great to have something that was built for advisors, kind of by advisors, and ultimately integrated really nicely with everything that you wanted to use. And so for me, that was an easy layup as far as like getting plugged into Wealthbox and kind of just reaching out at every level. And they did a great job of and they still do a great job for that matter, of doing webinars with other technology partners and how they integrate and what you can do. And I think that that's really, from my standpoint, educating yourself on how these different technologies play well with each other is an important investment you need to make in as an advisor if you're going to really embrace technology. I think everybody has to these days. But then with AssetMap in particular, I was, it wasn't at the top, of my choices at first, because I really didn't know who they were, and they kind of reached out and, hey, how's it going? And I said, I'm good. I started out with eMoney, and I moved on to Right Capital, and I still like Right Capital. But then they're like, oh, well, that's great, but we're different. And I said, well, how are you different? And we actually met at a Riskalyze Fearless Summit, the first one they did in 2017. I think it was actually Lake Tahoe, and sat down and actually was lucky enough to get to meet the owner and founder of AssetMap, Adam and Holt, and really sat down with him for about 30 minutes and let him just kind of explain to me what this software is and how it works. And that's when the light bulb went on, and the rest is history, as they say. So a long journey, but trying out a lot of different things along the way. I think that part of what you do as an advisor is you've got to find tools that work not only for you, but work for your clients. As I've said to Allison, I think a couple times in the past, you need to, in your golf bag of tools, you need to have all of the clubs for clients. Clients may only use 1 or 2 or 3 of them, but you have to have them all. But you also need to be ruthless about it, because it's, where's the data? What's the security? How many passwords do I want to manage? What am I really using it for? And if you can't be ruthless with your technology, you'll find yourself completely bogged down in process. And so, yeah, I advise everybody to be thoughtful about all of that.
Great. And Randy, one of the things I was curious about is, you mentioned the other tools, Orion and AssetMap, in the frame of, let's just say you just got a new client, what's your journey like from, CRM to, AssetMap to Orion? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. So, presuming that it's somebody that is already in Wealthbox, is somebody I've been calling upon and acting and trying to engage with, when I get kind of an open door, I love to use AssetMap's discovery tool, because it's just this quick little web link that you can shoot to them, whether it's in an email or do it with them live on screen. And it really kind of walks you through kind of the, the information gathering process of your financial planning process. And it doesn't, I always tell clients, or prospects for that matter, that it doesn't need to be perfect. It doesn't need to be down to the penny, but let's just get a good sketch. Do you have these retirement accounts? Do you have some life insurance? Do you have a mortgage? Do you have a car loan, student loan? Do you have 529s? And that's what AssetMap, I think, does visually for clients, is it provides you just a single page sketch of everything in your financial life. Then you can kind of see that and have a one-page solution, which is far better than getting the 3-inch thick bound reports that you get from other types of software and technology. And then the other great thing about having now the integration with Wealthbox is that with a single click, I can pull in all of that client data into the AssetMap. So I can get their name, I can get their date of birth, I can get some other important, I can get the other family members. If I've already populated that data inside of Wealthbox, I can link all of that in, and that's just a huge time saver. So I look at it as a real big technological advancement for both Wealthbox and AssetMap to have that integration.
Yeah, it was a really big help. For us, we had such a request for an AssetMap Wealthbox integration, tons of clients in common. I would say, Orion is certainly one of our most adopted integrations. We've had it around for quite a bit. We're going to talk a lot about, the more detailed items about the integrations next week, but we've had Orion around. Over 250 firms have activated the Orion AssetMap integration, which is extremely exciting. I think in the first week, we might have had 50 people access Wealthbox and AssetMap. It just took off so fast. We had so many requests. Working with these teams are both, it's a pleasure to work with both teams, but I'll tell you what, Wealthbox and AssetMap integration came up out of nowhere, and it was just super adopted early on.
Yep. Yeah, one of the great things also, Allison, as you mentioned about integrating with Orion, was just a simple, hey, I've custodied, whether it's TD, Schwab, Fidelity, wherever, Betterment, all that data pushes right through Orion right into the asset map, and you kind of dovetail it with Riskalyze as well, is another big technology that I love to utilize and talk about. But just bringing all that data in via Orion into the asset map is just a really great tool, really great way to get all of your stuff kind of on one page real fast.
Yeah. Randy, I think one of the unique things that because for quite some time, right, you were solo advisor, running a healthy book of business and doing what you could to try and make sure that you had the technology and processes in place to best support your clients. I'm curious to understand, like, as you engaged with your clients, like, how did the technology play a role in like supporting your fiduciary role with them? Like, what was it that made the technology really excel or expand that relationship?
Yeah, so there's a number of things, right? So obviously with Orion, and you get performance reports, and kind of every, you can kind of create your own format. Some clients want lots of details on their reports. Other clients want a one-pager. And the ability to customize that definitely gives you the ability to give clients what they want, when they want, where they want. I was a user of eMoney for a long time. And one of the really nice tools I really loved about Orion was you could populate from Orion. You could push those performance reports right into the eMoney vault. And so it's just, one less step for the client to have to worry about. I did spend some time kind of doing the Orion client portal. I found that clients just were gravitating towards other ways to access that data. And so for me, it was something that I talked about. It was just for my group of clients, it wasn't something but I think it's a great solution. I love the Orion client portal. It's really good. Aside from that, being able to, do all the billing and do invoicing the way with Orion gives you the ability to kind of, be transparent, show here's what the fees are, here's how they're calculated, here's what you're paying for. And so again, kind of nodding to that whole fiduciary branding that you want to be talking about. As far as kind of some of the other softwares and some of the other things some of the other apps inside of Orion that I find are extremely helpful are Orion Inform, which is the compliance module inside of Orion. And it gives me at any moment's notice, who are my high net worth clients? What are my assets under management? What has ever, and I can sort it by date, I can sort it by different client type, and it's great to have that resource there anytime you want it. You can just click right on it and get that data immediately. So I think that helps anybody that's, especially if you're ever under an audit, you want to have that available at your fingertips. So it's a great tool to have.
Randy, one of the things that I was wondering about, I know when we were talking earlier, you mentioned you were a power user of workflows. And I'd be curious if you could share some insight with the advisors who are listening, what kind of workflows do you use and for what processes? And
Sure.
can you touch a little bit on that?
Absolutely. Thanks, Jomin. I think for a long time, you started to hear the term workflows and you thought, oh my gosh, this is something I want to run from. I don't like workflows. What is that and why? I know what I'm doing. I'm doing it all myself anyway. Why do I need a process? I know in my head what I need to do. I actually, a couple of years ago, reached out and hired a consultant to come and talk to me about my operations as I was growing, and operations was taking over more and more of my day. And as a result of that process, I really kind of went through, and one of the great things inside of Wealthbox is you can create any number of reports. But the first thing the consultant said is, why do you have all these reports? And I said, well, this is how I figure out what I'm doing and where what birthdays are coming up and who needs a review. And these are all these. And she said, well, what you need to do is you need to go back in and redefine all of these workflows and reports. And so I went from 27 reports down to like 6. But in the process, so we have a new client workflow. You have an existing client relationship workflow, and that really kind of helped me rethink my approach to the way I run my business from the standpoint of, rather than having these large, overarching, full financial planning meetings with clients a couple times a year, I've broken down that process into much more regular communication based upon workflows. So there's a first quarter workflow, there's a second quarter workflow, and so on.
Mm.
And depending upon timeliness of things, like say, hey, we know taxes are coming up in April. So in March, I'm checking in to see, hey, how's your tax situation coming? Do you think you might owe some money? Do you think you might get some money back? If you owe some money, show me on the asset map which box you're going to pull those funds from. I'd recommend you pull it from your bank account, for example. And so having this in kind of a process for every part of the financial planning system really helps me stay on point and stay focused as where am I from day to day with all the different things you need to stay on top of. So those are a couple of examples of workflows that I put together.
Great. Yeah, that's super helpful. And did you have just like a whiteboarding session when you were looking at all of the operations of the firm? Did you outline first, like, where all my processes, and then from there you kind of just worked through and added those as workflows?
That's exactly right. So, the hard part was, like I said, when I finally kind of raised my hand and said I need some help, that was exactly what we did for 90 days, is kind of break down everything I do and why do you do it this way? Why do you do it that way? What if you connected this and added these 2 steps to your process, and then you know that it's completely done? Oh, sure. So that really helped, and being able to kind of visually map out the different steps in each process helped me get a lot more efficient with my day-to-day operation and be on point with time.
Sure.
I see some questions coming in, so let's see what we've got here. So I think you touched on this for a second, Randy, but Christian's asking what you use for a client portal, and that's certainly something else I wanted to talk to you about in regards to clients, is your use of the discovery platform in Asset Map. That might be a kind of a good segue to talk about how you're using discovery and your prospecting. But first, in addition to Orion, are you using any other kind of client portals?
Yeah, so I would say the main client portal for me is Right Capital, and that is, I like it for a couple of reasons. One, I like the vault element of it. It's a great dashboard that you can get, kind of live updates and get the actual kind of real balances in real time, and a lot of that will populate through to Asset Map. But ultimately, from a day in and day out standpoint, I'm seeing clients kind of they're using that app and they're using that client portal to access their information. So that's of my clients, at least, that's been their kind of go-to amongst available technology.
Got it. Would you like to talk a bit about your use of, I know you're using Discovery maybe sometimes better than almost any of the advisors we're working with. So for those of you who aren't familiar with Discovery at Asset Map, it's kind of a direct-to-client fact finder to really get some great information leading up to a meeting that you might not know about them otherwise, really just kind of getting the conversation going. But Randy is really utilizing this process well, and I thought it would be good to touch on it.
Yeah, sure. Thanks a lot, Alison. The Discovery was a great tool that came out probably 2 years ago, maybe not quite 2 years ago.
I think it was just about 3 years ago almost. Yeah.
Okay.
Time flies.
So, yeah, it does fly. But really, for me, this was just a real easy way to go ask clients to, rather than sit down and send me all your statements and do all of this paper chase and everything else. Here's a way I can give you a link, and it kind of walks you through methodically through, do you have an income? Do you have a house? Do you have retirement accounts? Yes, no, yes, no, yes, no. And then you populate in. It's not about getting down to the last penny. It's really about, hey, put in, I've got a 401k and it's about $100,000. I've got a taxable brokerage account and it's at Raymond James. And so from that, the output that you get from this discovery process is your first asset map. And so what you can see then from the prospect or the client's perspective is, I can show you on the screen here, you submit all this data to me, here's your output, here's what it looks like. And the first question you ask, like a doctor with an extra, is what's wrong with this picture? And from that's really where you start as far as I'm concerned, this is where you start the engagement process around let's start working together. You need help with this. You need help with that. What about this? Do you have any of this type of insurance? Should we be thinking about that? Show me where on the map here where you have 3 kids, and do you have 529 set up? Well, maybe we should talk about that. Maybe that should be part of our plan. So I think that those types of tools to have at your disposal make your practice much more nimble and efficient, and you can get a lot more done quickly. And that's part of the idea of Asset Map is speed and being able to give somebody a snapshot of their situation really quickly. And I just find it to be the easiest tool of everything I've seen over 9 years of fintech to be able to deliver advice to clients in as fast as you possibly can. So
that's great. Thank you. Yeah, we agree. We agree. So I have a couple of really cool questions that have come in. I'm going to save the one for the second one up. But Jomin, if you could touch on something for us here. Wealthbox question came in. Is there a way to do any bulk assigning of a workflow to a subset of clients or all clients, or kind of filter workflows in some sense? And let me make sure I didn't miss anything in that. If not, is there something that might be in the future that you could do something similar?
Yes, so there is a way that you can filter workflows in the workflows view. So it's actually just a new feature that we released recently, where you can have task and workflow categories. So you can add these categories, let's say all new client onboarding workflows, or new account opening workflows, or money movement workflows. So you can filter it by those filters. So that's one option for you. In regards to the second question that was asked here in terms of bulk actions and for all of your clients, that's not available at this time. That's some good feedback. I'll certainly relay over to our product team. But currently, bulk actions on the contact records, you can send an email in bulk if you'd like to send a broadcast email. You can tag in bulk. Update different compliance fields, things like that, or even permissions. So that's available in Wealthbox today. But yeah, to the question of filtering, that is something that's available. And if you have questions about that, feel free to reach out to sales@wealthbox.com.
That sounds like a great new feature. Very cool, and thanks for the answer. So here's a fun question. Question for Randy. Our firm usually currently uses 2 of the 3 tech platforms, but they're not going to say which 2. We're not going to say who's missing. Can you talk about how you evaluated these tools and how they how you were able to integrate new technology without disrupting your processes and really making sure that it fit in nicely with what you were doing?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. I think I did the Asset Map hosted a webinar last fall, I think it was, or maybe late last summer, called Advisor Tech, and really the idea was like you got this kind of pie chart of all the different elements of your business and what technologies you use to solve for this, that, or the other. And for me, it was with regard to Orion. I think initially it was, this is something I need. People, at the time were like, well, geez, for all these different tools, you could use, Morningstar for this, or you could use Black Diamond for that, or so. There were lots of competitors, but for me, Orion was something that intuitively seemed good and easy for me to use. And so for my first hurdle is, can I use it? Is it simple enough that I can understand it and learn about it? And like any technology, there's going to be a learning curve. But if I can't intuitively get through the first demo and go, gee, do I remember how do I log in, and where do I go to find this or that or whatever I need? If I can't get through that, then it's probably not going to be a good fit. And then beyond that, you have to invest in yourself as an advisor. If you're going to sign up for this technology, whatever it might be, you're going to have to invest some time to be able to get good at it. And I forget who, was it Gladwell that talks about you have to, in order to become a professional or excellent with something, you have to spend 10,000 hours to be really good at something. You don't need to spend 10,000 hours on any one of these softwares, but you do need to spend some time understanding, where does the data go? How do I get it in? What am I going to get? What is the output from it that I can use into my system? And it's going to take a little time. For me, the thing that made me click with Wealthbox in particular was the fact that everything was kind of set up for you. These templates, the input process was easy to use and very familiar. So it was logical information. And then with Asset Map, the thing for me was not only was it kind of like, oh, here's, you put in this data, now I get a one pager, but they did a great job in their knowledge base of putting together this, very thorough video library. Here's how we do this. Here's how you do target map. Here's how you fund for this. Here's how you solve for that. So it actually required me to spend a little time in the software learning it, but it was something that if you don't do, you're never going to use it. And I'm sure all three of you would agree. You've had some advisors who've come in, they've signed up for a demo, they try it out for a month, and then they kind of fizzle out. And I think it's because they're not investing the time to figure out if it's really a good tool for them or not. They're just like, oh, they get stuck at one point and they just throw it aside. So my advice is invest the time, get to know and reach out to your partners here, ask them questions, get into the chat boxes. I'm stuck here, where do I find this? That's what's going to make a big difference for you when you analyze these different tools. Are they good for me? Can I use them? I think that's probably the best way to go.
Randy, as a piggyback to that question, I think a lot of advisors are, they see the value it adds for their firm, but the next question is, well, how will this impact my clients, right? Like, because regardless of whether something is better, sometimes we forget that just because it's better doesn't mean it won't be disruptive. And, it sounds like you've even gone through a couple iterations on your client experience, right? Like finding the right technology that's going to best adapt to fit your client needs and create a better relationship there, which is fantastic. But how did you navigate those waters? Like, obviously, the clients, generally speaking, they don't know the tech partners, no, and they probably really don't care. So how did you figure out like what's the right path to go? And did you meet with them and train them on the technology? Was it something that, okay?
Yeah, so that's a great question, and you're spot on. Part of it is your client experience is everything, because otherwise you're gonna not have clients. And so for me, it was a little bit of trial and error with clients. Like, here's this technology. Do you people would say, okay, let's try it out. Let's give it a shot. And you get feedback. Do you like it? Or you could sell like, hey, so-and-so's, 20% of my clients are logging in regularly like I would like them to. Everybody else, it's always like I have to nudge them to use it. If I have to keep nudging you to do that, it's probably not a good tool for the client. And so what you need to do is like, all right, well, what do you want the client to experience? How do you want them to feel about you and your business? And what different technologies are going to connect with different clients? And so for the ones that have broader adoption, those are the ones you're going to be able to use more consistently and more successfully over time. So coming back to Asset Map in particular, I looked at this tool relative to the other technologies that were available, and what was something that everybody seemed to, they seem to get it, they recognize it when they see it, they know it's not something they have, at least for the moment, Allison, they don't have a username and a login to worry about, because there's no way to do that in Asset Map. And so they just know, like, especially in the virtual environment that we've been in for so long, having the ability to like share your screen and then be able to draw on the Asset Map and show them like, okay, let's work on this, and next month we'll come back and talk about that. That was a really great way to help evaluate how clients are using and in kind of engaging with you as an advisor, because that's what you want, is you want your clients to be engaged. And to your point, Eddie, about, hey, I've got the shiny new thing here. Well, nobody cares. So they're just like, what's going on with my money? What's going on with my estate planning? I don't care what you're using, Randy. How are you solving my problems for me? So I think that when you approach it from that standpoint, you usually end up finding, here are the things that are working, and maybe these are the things that are not working. And that could apply to not just the client experience, but it could also apply for advisors with things like, social media, and there's so many different platforms and technologies available to help you build your social media presence. Some are better than others, and some engage better than others. So I just put that out there too.
That's definitely a great point. And we certainly agree. And sometimes simplicity is a good thing, and we certainly believe in that in Asset Map, that's for sure.
Yeah.
So a question came in specifically around Orion and Wealthbox and your integration between the two of you. If people have suggestions, if they have, thoughts about where they might, think it could potentially be beneficial to make some additions or some changes, is there, kind of a product forum that someone could submit something to, or how do you guys prefer to get your feedback from subscribers?
Yeah, sure. I'll
Jomin,
take
you
this
want
one,
to start?
Eddie, and then yeah, sure. So with the Orion integration, one of the things that you can do is you can reach out to our support team, schedule a call with them. They'll jump on a Zoom with you and they'll walk you through how to enable that integration. But if you are, let's say within the app right now, click the three dots at the top right, click Applications, find Orion, and you put in your Orion login and password. That's going to sync both systems. And then once you go into your contact records, you'll have the Orion tab there for your households and contacts. And essentially what it is, it's an account aggregation feature. So if you're on your household, you'll have the account aggregation of all the accounts, and then you can click in each one of them to single sign on right into Orion. So yes, but please do reach out, support@wealthbox.com. We'd love to set up a Zoom with you just to walk you through that step by step. And then with that, Eddie, I'll hand it off to you.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have a very similar support structure at Orion. If you have questions or feedback, you're welcome to either reach out to your strategic consultant if you have one, account manager, or the subject matter expert team that supports integrations. And if you have any other, if you're not interested in that, you can reach out to the phone line and somebody will answer and get you pointed in the right direction. I think what's really great about the partnership, though, that we have is, we're both willing to get on the line and get a tri-party call going. If you have feedback and things like that, we're happy to take that feedback in. And our development that we do on integrations is specifically guided by the feedback we receive from advisors, right? So without your feedback, it makes it really difficult for us to know what we need to move forward with as well for enhancements. So would love to hear that at any time.
Yeah, and we echo that at AssetMap as well. We have a great kind of product forum that we notate every single time someone says, hey, could you do more with Wealthbox? Or is there a feature that you could add with your integration with Orion? Or, dozens of other companies that we get integrations requests for. We notate every single one. The amount that comes in, the volume of these, it makes a big difference with the companies that are making these decisions. I know I can speak for Wealthbox and Orion, and they have said the same. And gosh, every company that we interface with, really the advisor requests are high up on the list of decisions that are made when it comes to integrations, especially, which is really nice for us to be able to say. Something else we haven't touched on, since I'm looking at some of our questions here. Randy, any kind of stories you'd like to share with us as far as, either, a situation that comes to mind that, Wealthbox has either made, kind of a client interaction easier, or an AssetMap story, an Orion story that you think would be beneficial to share? Everybody loves a good story, so I thought I'd throw that out to you.
Sure. Well, let's see. One great story I have that I love to share about AssetMap in particular is the fact that, with AssetMap and the target maps function inside of AssetMap, you're able to show clients kind of like, hey, I'm working towards a particular dollar goal for a particular financial goal that I have. And you can show them kind of in real time, kind of how much money do I need today? How close how funded am I towards that goal? And how much more money do I need for that? And whether that's, I need to save an extra $500 a month at 5% a year to get to that target, or in one client's case, was we were talking about his pending retirement. He's like, I just don't know if I want to keep working. And I said, well, we're a little off here. And he said, yeah, okay, well, like how much? And I said, well, based on this is, it's about $250,000. And that number kind of resonated with him and hit him between the eyes, and like, oh, okay. And you could see the wheels turning. You could see kind of like how many more months of work is that going to really take for me to get that, and how much more bonus cash, and versus saying, well, I've got this Monte Carlo that says you're about, 96% funded towards your goal. I don't know, you're kind of in there, but that giving somebody a number like that really puts, kind of levels the playing field and gives them clarity around what they really need to do. And it makes them maybe helps them make a little bit more difficult decision around, well, maybe I should retire, maybe I should work another year or two. Okay, yeah, that's a good idea. I agree. So that's a great asset map experience I've had. I think for me, again, with Orion, just especially on the compliance side, having the Inform is a very robust tool. And as a solo advisor who doesn't have individual stock positions that I need to report on, I probably used, it's like, having the Cadillac and driving it like a Honda. So having the fact that I have all that available to me, should I need it, that would be great. But I had such a sense of peace of mind knowing that, hey, if I ever was audited and I needed access to all of that client data in a moment's notice, that I could tap into this app inside of Orion and get everything I needed from it right there on the spot and show me the last time I've looked at everything, last time I've gone over these numbers. So, I mean, it's a really robust tool. I think it's Eddie, I don't know if what the numbers are. I guess I never have dialed into how many advisors using Orion utilize that tool, but I have to imagine it's pretty high.
It is actually, but I appreciate the feedback there, Randy. What I think is really telling about what you shared here is that you've been able to take these 3 technologies and ultimately piece them together, and you have additional components to your technology stack as well. But you've been able to really build a very successful practice and establish a great relationship with your individual clients, and I think that's a really powerful message about how a tech-enabled fiduciary process can really ultimately work, right? I think the one question I'd have is, how different do you think your business would be today if it wasn't for these pieces of technology ultimately integrating together to allow you to to scale and grow your business?
It would be I would be nowhere near as successful. There's no doubt about that. In the early days of when I first started, the whole integration platform, what was kind of early, it existed, but it wasn't anywhere near as robust as it is today. And kind of having the ability to plug and play with different technology is very much important to your overall ability to be successful in all the things you mentioned. You only have so much time in the day. And so to the extent that you can simplify your process and optimize and be efficient so that the data you need is available to you where and when you want it in the format that you need is everything about your ability to scale. And for me, ultimately, I recently just merged my business into AdvicePeriod, and that entire decision was based on scale, being able to continue to grow my practice and succession planning. And so I think that those are always elements for any advisor, wherever you are in the development of your career and your practice. So being thoughtful about every step of the way, where would we be if we didn't have the ability to integrate the client data feed from the custodian through Orion, through Riskalyze onto the asset map, and have that data kind of feedback ultimately into Wealthbox. Yeah, not having 5 different systems that don't talk to each other. You'd spend all day just kind of logging in and logging out, just trying to find things. So having all that synced is tantamount to having a successful practice.
That's awesome. Alison, do we have any more questions that have come in?
Yeah, I'm looking here. I think actually, ironically, I think the first question we got we haven't touched on, and I believe this might be directed toward Orion. Need some advice on securely sending quarterly PDF reports and invoices. So any kind of training around items like that, I believe that's directed toward you, Eddie.
Sure, and Randy, I'd love to hear your feedback too on how you look at this. But you know, if you're looking at it from your portfolio accounting technology, I think you really have a couple options. You know, the part of the core component of the tech is the quarter end process that we have, and I'd say it's better referred to as a cadence-based reporting solution, because whether you do it monthly, quarterly, annual, however you decide to do those is up to you. But we have a very robust workflow experience that is both focused around the reporting and the billing process. And we do have plenty of training material, plus our subject matter expert teams that can hop on the line and walk you through all of that experience as well. But I'd say, like, securely sending it, I think there's a couple options that you have to consider. You know, what's your client portal? So what are you using? Is there connectivity of those documents into that? Sometimes, you might be using a third-party solution too, like a box or something like that. So I think what's going to be most important is understanding and identifying the technology sources that you're using to deliver that experience. I will caveat that with, if you are using Orion as your preferred client experience solution, we do have that vault that can also contain your custodian statements. So we have a lot of data feeds set up from a document standpoint with your custodians, in addition to the promotion of your cadence-based reports into that vault, and your clients can then receive notifications and ultimately log in and get access to all that content, whenever. But Randy, I'd love to hear what are you doing today for your cadence reporting and billing process?
Yeah, so for me, it was monthly in arrears. And so ultimately, you go through and you kick off your month-end dashboard, if you will, and you go through all the steps in that process, and then you get the data files back and you sign off on it, and then so you run your billing through TD. I use Box, so I would run those invoices through Box to the clients, and they have access to that. I'd also just remind them that hey, it's also on your performance report. You can go to the second page and look at the individual account line items, and tells you right there, nice and clear, how much you paid me last month. And so from that process, that's really that. And then also kind of on the tail of that would be the performance reporting that I do quarterly as well. So all of that, kind of driven through this cadence-based process at Orion, makes peace of mind, because I know kind of where am I in the process. I see there's 15 steps here. I'm on step 13, waiting to get the sign off of the data back from Orion. I know that's usually targeted around the third or fourth day of the month. So by the end of the first week, I'm able to go ahead and collect my fees and send out my invoices and so on.
Great feedback.
Yeah. Great. I think we're all caught up on questions. If anybody has anything before we get wrapped up in a few minutes, please feel free to type it in the questions box. I certainly, I know for myself, and I'm sure for my panelists, we appreciate the questions and the great interesting conversations you've helped to spur on here. So we certainly appreciate it. What else are you guys thinking out there? Type it in and let us know what you've got on your minds. Jomin, anything else you'd like to ask Randy or Eddie before we start wrapping up and talking about next week?
Yeah, nothing else on my end.
Great. Randy, anything you'd like to add that we just couldn't possibly live without knowing that you'd like to include in the conversation?
I appreciate that. No, I think I'm good. And thanks for all the great questions.
Oh my gosh, yeah, we're all very appreciative that you joined us today. And before we get finished up for this session, please join us for next week. We have one more in our series of 3 that we're going to be really digging a bit more into the integration. We're going to be talking a bit more about practice management and how you can really get the most out of using these 3 systems in conjunction with each other. Certainly they're wonderful standalone, but really the genesis for having this meeting, and I said it last week, we hear so often, especially since we added that Wealthbox integration that, like I said, just took off. Orion is one of our longest standing integrations. But once Wealthbox came around and everyone was using all 3, we just kept getting these inbound messages saying, wow, I am just absolutely killing it with the 3 of you together. It's seamless. It's wonderful. I think everybody said it today, and Randy certainly brought it up. These systems are easy to adopt. Their customer support is great, and everyone is willing to get you the training and the assistance you need to get up and running. And I think we're a great trio. There's no doubt about that. And that's really why we wanted to set this up. And we at AssetMap truly appreciate our relationship with Wealthbox and Orion. It's extremely valuable to us, and we're really happy it translates to our advisors. And that's really why we wanted to have this session. But again, next week, May 6th, 3 p.m. So we're doing every Thursday at 3, starting last week through next week. And what's the winning practice management combination? And we think it's these 3. But next week, we're going to talk more about it and really get into more depth. Adam from AssetMap will be back to discuss, and we're really looking forward to it. So definitely join us for next week as well.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Alison and Eddie and Randy, just for sharing your tips. Really appreciate your time today.
Yeah, thank you, Randy, very much. It was great, great to hear your side.
Thanks, everybody. It's a pleasure.
Alrighty.
Thank you so much, Randy.
Yep. See ya.
All right, bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.